What's up and welcome back to the channel. I just recently had an aspect of this job that almost turned out in disaster. I ended up changing something at the last minute that I think really saved us from having kind of a botched install. Wanted to share that with you guys in this video. We had it spec'd to install Poplar nickel gap on a few different feature walls in this house. And as you can see, there's a pretty wide variation of grain and color differences with Poplar. Whenever you stain it, it does tend to flatten out quite a bit and come to more of a intermediate color where it all blends together. But you'll notice we've got a really wide span here, way over 16 foot. So we were gonna have some butt joints. Now you'll notice with these boards, sometimes you can get nice light colored boards where the butt joint would blend together and it's almost grain matched and it looks really good. But then there are other times where you have boards where the color difference is just slightly off and you've got a light area and a dark area, and then you've got to create a butt joint. And if you're trying to just finish that off nice and smooth and make it seamless, you're gonna see all of those joints and it's just not gonna look very good. Sometimes I get spec'd details in finished carpentry where I just know it's not gonna look very good. And this was one of those cases. So what I did was I ended up asking the designer if we could accent the butt joints and basically match the nickel gap detail on the butt joints in the same way that we have here on all of the long joints. I think it actually turned out really good. I think it looks way, way better and just gives it kind of a unique look. But most importantly, it just breaks up these joints and makes it look more intentional. Whereas if we would have tried to run some of these multicolored joints through and just sanded them flush, it just would have looked terrible, I think. Before we go any further, huge shout out to Paul and Nate. They did the install on this tongue and groove material and they did absolutely a fantastic job. All sanded really well, prepped for stain, and the scribes to the floor, the wall, and the ceiling are absolutely airtight. They did a fantastic job. It's been awesome to see these guys grow in their skill set. And for me as a business owner, having guys that I can depend on to do stain grade installs like this is just makes life so much easier. I wanted to show you guys a really cool router bit that I use to do that detail. But first, just a little explanation. A lot of times I use the phrase nickel gap and sometimes people don't know what I'm talking about. Nickel gap is different than shiplap. The nickel gap product that I install is a tongue and groove product. So it sits together like so. And then the reason they call it nickel gap is because it leaves quote unquote a nickel gap. Now it's actually wider than a nickel, but it's a smaller gap. This product is different than shiplap. Shiplap is an actual rabbet that overlaps, and you actually would really need to face nail shiplap down here because there would be nothing to hold it in place. The great thing about this nickel gap product is we can nail it just through the tongue up here, and then the next piece is going to cover those nail holes, and then on the lower portion, it's locked in with the tongue and groove. So we don't have any exposed nails when we use nickel gap, and that's why this has been a great product for us to install. Now the nice thing with a true shiplap is it's an actual overlapping rabbet detail, and that allows you to actually make different size spaces and adjust this a bit more. The downside again is you would need to face nail the bottom row. With this nickel gap, the downside is you have to really stick with this nickel gap, because if you get your board opened up a little bit, you see that gap there and that wouldn't look good. So you need to maintain the same space on all of your pieces. This router bit that I'm using is a really handy little bit. It's just an offset bit, about 1/8 of an inch or so. It's a dedicated bit, but I use it for a ton of little different trim details. When I just want to create a little rabbet on the end of a board, this is an excellent bit to have around. I've got them in all of my router kits. So basically, to achieve this detail, we just chuck up the bit, offset it so it's about 1/8 of an inch deep. Give it just a quick little sand on the end to get the little fuzzies off there. And then we always sand the face of our boards for stain grade work also. But then pushing that together, we've got this nice detail then that matches the nickel gap on our long joints. Now the other beautiful thing about doing it this way is we no longer have to use biscuits in our butt joints and sanding to create this really nice smooth finish. We're breaking up the joint with this detail, so we're accenting the joint, so joinery is no longer required. But then since it is a tongue and groove material, the bottom piece and the top piece on each board are gonna lock these two boards together so that they're on plane really nicely, which means we don't have to put biscuits in those joints. You can see this is just a nice looking detail. Turns out really crisp. You can join your boards together and it just looks great. The nice thing is you don't have to worry about biscuiting your joints to keep them flush, because the boards that connect across the bottom and the top are gonna basically automatically align these to keep them flush. So that's great. If you were doing butt joints like this without an accentuated break, you would have to use biscuits, glue it, pinch dog, and then sand everything really well to get it looking nice and flush. But then your color differences would stick out, and it just wouldn't look as good in a situation like this. Now I know I'm gonna get some negative comments because a lot of people are not gonna like the Poplar color. There is a wide range of color in Poplar, from a very clear white grain to a green grain, and sometimes we even get into a really dark color that's even purple at times. So there is a wide range of color in Poplar. The thing is, here in the Midwest, it's extremely plentiful. It's very affordable. And it looks really good. With a good painter, they'll put a stain on it and it really blends together nicely, especially if you're going with a darker color, which I believe we are here. If you want a perfectly matched board, use white oak. But white oak is probably 5 times the cost of the Poplar that we're using here. So it's not my job to make those decisions. It's my job to make it look as good as I can. And in this case, I'm really happy with this detail. I like how it turned out. Just wanted to share it with you guys. Wanted to show you that router bit because I've used it on a number of jobs now, and it just comes in super handy. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is just a quick one showing a little bit of what we've been doing here, what we got going on. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments, and otherwise we'll see you next time.